So hello and welcome to the Expat Pod and welcome to the shorter quickfire questions version of the podcast. Today I'm joined by Linda, and I have just finished doing the full episode, so if you haven't listened to that already, please do go and find it somewhere near my head. There'll be a link on if you're watching on YouTube, or you can find it however you're listening to this podcast. So Linda, originally from Australia and lived in the UK and travelled extensively around the world. My first question to you is, where is your favourite place you ever lived?
It has to be where I live now, and that's Sydney. It's Sydney. I think we are really blessed, actually. Look, I love to visit other places, but I feel incredibly lucky to be living in Australia. I think that we really are the lucky country for many reasons. And look, I'm sure that there are lots of other great places to be, but I think, for me, Sydney, I feel very lucky to be living here in Australia.
And then what's your favourite international food?
Lately, after my last trip to Hong Kong, egg tarts, the Hong Kong egg tarts. They're delicious. Oh, and they're different.
Custard tart, like a pasta volata.
Yes, custard tart, like the Portuguese egg tarts. They have just a delicious melt-in-the-mouth puff pastry. It's a Chinese puff pastry, apparently.
Well, I'll have to go and sneak those out. I've never heard of those.
Really, really good. You should try that. I've got a bit of a sweet tooth.
What's your favourite international tradition?
I love visiting churches and temples. Is that a tradition? I suppose it is. In a sense, it's a religion. The different religions, I find the sacred places, put it that way. So it could be anything from, Glastonbury tour to, a temple in Bali, or I went to an amazing 2,000-year-old temple in China. That's what I really enjoy, the special sacred places.
I'm also fascinated by, places of faith or worship, because normally that's where a lot of the artists or the incredibly skilled people will have donated a lot of time or work to help create. So they will have, incredible stonemasons and things all over the world will have spent money there or time there. So you have these incredible structures, and for me that's quite exciting to see and understand how much people's faith has made them create some incredible stuff. And you've been to Cologne in Germany, but the Don is survived 2 wars and still stands there, and apparently there's a lot of fun kind of local history or myth about that cathedral in Cologne. But it's a wonderful thing to do. What's your favourite thing about living abroad?
Look, I had experiences like I would never have dreamed that I would have had when I was living in England. Like working as a dresser at the National Theatre, I didn't even conceive of that job. And I was lucky enough to be doing that. That was really fun at times. And and in Glastonbury as well, I had met some amazing people, had some wonderful experiences, and I couldn't have planned or expected, the fun and the interest and the learning that happens when you're traveling and living in a different country, discovering all kinds of things that you really have, that I certainly didn't expect.
I guess, it's the unknowns, which are often always quite fun and keep you on your toes, even if they're good or bad.
The unknowns are kind of scary. They're kind of scary, aren't they? But they're often not when it's happening. You kind of manage and you handle things as they come up, as it happens. Yeah, but looking back, it was a really broadening and opening and, really just fun time. Although there were some challenges, I have to say there were some challenges. But overall, it was a wonderful experience.
Annoyingly, the challenges make the best stories. That's why we often kind of seek them out. My next question is then, what's your best homesickness remedy?
Look, I think WhatsApp. These days, WhatsApp is great. You can pick up the phone and just talk to people. And look, get on Skype or Zoom, and you're almost in somebody's home. I mean, look at us chatting now, James, all the way across the world. So, the distance is not, look, it's there, it's physical, but there's so many things that you can do. You just pick up the phone, have a chat to somebody. I think that's the biggest remedy. And get busy Get busy doing things that you want to do. Have a great life. Enjoy yourself. Yeah, that would be what I would do. Get out and about, visit places, go to museums, go visit a temple, go climb a mountain, look at the beautiful flowers. It's different. The sounds are different. The smells are different. The food's different. Everything's different. And that makes it interesting and fun and exciting. So get out and about and enjoy what's there. Be very present.
Staying mindful is the key then, I guess. On that, what's the hardest thing about living abroad?
Oh, it's the same thing. It's learning how to manage those negative experiences when they come up, and those negative emotions too. You can't help missing someone on their birthday or wishing you were there for Christmas. But what you can do is create your own fun in a different way. Like I remember having Christmas at my place. I offered to cook, and I just invited people over when I was living in Glastonbury. So it was I'd never cooked Christmas dinner. I remember we ate very, very late, about 4:00 in the afternoon, because it just didn't cook. It was cooking. So it was a bit of a disaster for the food, but it was certainly fun. And it wasn't lonely either. So, but sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone and make things happen, or invite yourself over, or just say, look, I'm on my own. I'd really love to spend some, if not Christmas, let's do Christmas Eve or something like that. And I find that when people realise that they can be quite open and quite welcoming, but often people think you're fine when you're not. So asking for what you need is you're much more likely to have your needs met if you ask for it.
It's often quite brave, I think, to do that, because it's quite difficult to embrace what people might think is a failure of asking for help, which is it's not. It's the opposite. It's an achievement to acknowledge that you need the help.
Yeah, that's true. What I've discovered is that being vulnerable, and you might feel very vulnerable, but it is a thing that connects you with other people. And you probably, if they feel they can be of use and be of help, most people will. People love to be loved, and they love to love also, and to care for other people. So, so there's that. So I think, don't be afraid to be vulnerable too. At times you do need help. And I have to say, I've experienced some incredible kindness from people at times just by being, I'm just thinking of one time not in South Africa. I was traveling in Cape Town, and I went out New Year's Eve. I wanted to go out New Year's Eve. I wanted to see the fireworks. But I got into a situation where I met some guys at the hostel, and I went with two guys I'd never really met before. We took a black taxi, like a minibus, to get there. And when I got there, it felt really horrible, and I didn't want to stay there. There were lots of people running around throwing eggs and tomatoes and they're getting each other with black shoe polish, And I just got dressed up for the occasion, and after traveling, and I put on my one decent blouse. It was silk blouse. I really didn't want to get shoe polish and eggs and stuff on it. So, and then somebody threw an egg. We were having dinner, and they threw an egg, and it hit the window right next to me. And that was it. I just decided I was going home to the hostel. I looked around for another taxi, another minibus, but they weren't running because it was New Year's Eve. And all the drivers were there enjoying that was their idea of a party. It wasn't mine. Didn't see any fireworks either in the end. But look, I got in a taxi. Well, I got in a taxi. I did find a proper taxi, but then after we'd been driving for about 5 or 10 minutes, I realised that I didn't have enough money for the trip. And so I said to the driver, we'd stopped for petrol, and I said, look, this is as much money as I've got. Maybe can you take me as far as you can take me, and then I'll have to walk the rest of the way. And I think South Africa is a particularly dangerous place. And this very, very kind man, he took me all the way back, and he wouldn't let me pay him the rest of the money. He just said, Happy New Year, love. Maybe not quite like that, but whatever they'd say in South Africa. I just feel very, very, very grateful, even now, this is many years later, for that kindness. Yeah. I was young. I was in my 20s, so I was young. Yeah. So making sure you've got enough money, it's important. Have money, just not on me at that time. So having the right kind of access to your money is really helpful. Yeah.
It's modern technology now. It's all on your phone, so it's quite useful. You can just tap or your watch if you've got a smartwatch, as well as the traditional card and cash methods. So it's quite there's always a backup that I've always found. Yeah. I remember, traveling when I was younger, and it wasn't really a thing, but having Apple Pay made a huge difference just for ease.
Right. I haven't used it. Use that. I should probably look into
I don't have a wallet anymore. Well, I do, but I never take it with me anywhere. So I just use my phone or my watch to pay for things. It becomes it's one less thing to carry, I think. So I'll take it with me on holiday because I've got a driving license and things, but I leave it in the safe or wherever. If I'm traveling, I have it with me, obviously, but I tend not to take it on day excursions or wherever I'm doing. What's the best phrase you've learned on your travels?
Okay, there's it was an advertising slogan. It was, if you never go, you'll never know. So if you never go, you'll never know. So you have to go, you have to find out, basically. Yeah.
That's really good, I think. Yeah,
never go, you'll never know.
What's your best way of making new friends?
I just start talking to people in queues. I just sometimes, I don't know, smile, say hello, see somebody, I don't know. Often I go for days on my own without speaking to anyone, and then I'll just find myself having a conversation with some random person that I've just met, often standing in a queue. In Hong Kong, I had a nice conversation when I was waiting. I went to the Peninsula Hotel to have high tea, very British, in Hong Kong. So that's the remains of the British culture in Hong Kong, and the colonial culture there in one of the posh hotels. And I was waiting in the queue to be seated in this lovely hotel and was chatting to some people from Hong Kong and Macau, and they were there to celebrate a birthday. And so that was just really, I don't know, we were just talking about whatever was relevant or current. I don't know, I meet people really easily. I seem to meet people really easily. Don't know, I don't, just smile and just a comment and turns into a conversation, and not a hard thing, I don't think. Is it?
I think it depends on how extroverted you might be, and maybe it's something you've learned over time, perhaps. But if you're
maybe sometimes I'm quite introverted. I'm not always extrovert. Not always. I often make friends with the staff at the hotel where I'm staying, particularly if I'm staying alone. And I ask about local knowledge. I ask if it's safe. I ask about the best way to get to wherever I want to go. If I'm going out at night, is it safe? Or this is what I want to do. Is it a good idea? And usually you'll get good advice. And I often book taxi drivers that way too, because if the hotel staff book them for you, they know who they've called, they know where you've gone, that kind of thing. I don't know.
You mentioned it before, but being vulnerable as well is another one you mentioned earlier, which also probably works. It's knowing that you need help, and then that starts a conversation and a friendship. So it's having that self-awareness and getting over yourself in that sense to then go and ask for help is probably the way to do it.
Yeah, I think perhaps yes.
What's your best thing to do in your new city? So your new home. So now you've moved back to Sydney. That's right. What's the best thing to do there?
Go spend some time on the harbour, around the harbour. Go visit the opera house. Go see an opera, even if you're not an opera person. Book a ticket. You get to see inside that amazing, it's a really extraordinary building, the Sydney Opera House in a stunning location right on Sydney Harbour. Go there at night also with all the city lights. So it's just spend a day around there's so many great things to do in Sydney. You could go for a walk around the rocks, experience some of, the Sydney's colonial history, where it's the old town, Sydney's old town, and just the harbour views, the scenery is pretty incredible. So yeah, there's a lot to do here in Australia and Sydney.
My parents are going next year, so I'll
really?
give
Okay.
I'll give them that heads up. And my last question is, what's your best expat life hack?
Don't bring your TV back from England, and don't take your TV across to England. They have different technology. I bought a new TV set and I packed it up and put it on the boat and sent it back to Australia thinking, I'll need that when I get home. And it wouldn't work. They use different technology. So that's one thing I learned the hard way.
Yeah, that was a thing with DVDs growing up. Like American DVDs didn't play on British DVD players. So
yeah, you've got different tech. So there we are. It's a different type of receiver. I think, you'd have more fun in London if you have lots of money to spend as well. I wasn't earning money and was trying to preserve the money that I did have. I think that if you had been financially really well off or go to a job that's well paid, you might have a better time actually in London, because you can go out and you can do more things. You can go out and eat in restaurants and go out for, I don't know, the theatre, that kind of thing, which is an amazing thing to be able to do in London. There's so many great things to do.
Yeah,
you do
maybe you just seem to unlock more experiences for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Especially spending Australian dollars against the pound.
Well, yes, that's all my questions. So thank you so much for your time, Linda, and thank you for dealing with our slight technical issue experience. But those listening and watching will never have known.
I'm sure you can edit it. I'm just sorry that happened. That was quite a bad dropout, wasn't it? But then again, you're a very long way away, so it's also clever.
I mean, that's the extent of the issue we're having. Literally being the other side of the world or a different hemisphere.
It's small, isn't it?
Pretty small fry. But yeah, thank you for your time, and thank you
so much for having me. I've enjoyed chatting to you, James. And wish you all the best with your podcast.
Thank you so much.